We light our chalice this morning, grateful for the love that we experience in this beloved community. May the flame light the way for all who seek such abundance. Beloved, welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester. I'm Aaron Payson, honored to be the minister of this wondrous congregation. I would begin this morning by acknowledging that in Worcester, Massachusetts, we work, learn, and live and worship in the seized ancestral homeland of the Nipmuc people, who survive and remain active as the Nipmuc Nation. We're glad that you've joined us here this morning. We hope that this service gives you an opportunity to pause for a few minutes to gather in community so that we might care for each other and take a moment to reflect on our own well-being, as well as discover opportunities for spiritual refreshment and service in the wider world. As an act of solidarity with our children and those among us who have not yet been able to be vaccinated, we invite all of you to wear a face mask. Mask should be placed over the nose and mouth and gently formed to the contour of the nose and chin. If you don't have a face mask, please speak to an usher who will provide you with one. Large print orders of service and hymnals are located in the foyer, as well as hearing devices and pew cushions for those who would find any of these helpful. Please see one of our ushers or greeters to help locating any of these. For those of you who are joining us online this morning, a hearty welcome. For safety purposes and so that we might come to know you better as you are able, please list your name on your video feed. Please note that this service is being live streamed on Zoom and Facebook, as well as being recorded for future availability on the church YouTube channel and our website worship archive. Closed captioning is available for those on Facebook. We extend a very special welcome to our newcomers this morning and invite you to fill out one of the cards found in the pews, or As you are able online, a link will be shared with you that contains a digital copy of this pew card. We welcome you to fill this information out, and for those of you who have actual cards, to drop them in the offering plate or leave them in one of the boxes here in the sanctuary. In a moment, we will be passing around our pew sheets. We invite all of you to sign the sheet. Please know that the information collected is for church purposes only. Due to the pandemic, we are foregoing the collection of children's change for change in person. However, there is a basket next to the Joys and Sorrows candle bowl for those who would like to contribute change to assist with the church's emergency fund this morning. Following the service, you are invited to join us for a time of fellowship under the tent in front of the building. We will precede our fellowship time following the service with a dedication of our little free library, and we'll invite all of you who are here this morning to join us at the end of the parking lot following the service before we begin our fellowship time, in order that we might celebrate the addition of this wondrous new ministry here at UUCW. Once again, we welcome you and we thank you for joining us this morning. Our opening words this morning are those of my colleague Marnie Harmony. We whose journeys are always beginning, we whose mission always awaits us, we whose vision are bent on loving, we gather together here. We gather as a community drawn together out of a common need, each touting our own carpetbag of treasures and dreams. We gather together seeking meaning, yearning to understand life in all its dimensions, as it challenges and expands, as it burdens, as it consoles and heals. We gather together with questions, the kinds of questions that provoke us to the path of action. We gather with hope, the kind of hope that pulses on through uncertainty. We gather with tenderness, the kind of tenderness that can only be born from knowing human capabilities as well as human imperfections. We gather wanting certainty and having none, but we are wakeful to possibilities as we seek discernment and gentle judgment. We gather then unbounded but close. We gather thirsty. We gather drawn to our source, that which has created us. Amen. I would like to invite you to join in our opening hymn and our Halloween parade. So those of you who have change this morning that you would like to contribute to our little ones who will be collecting that for their Halloween gifting this season, please have them at the ready, because you're going to be holding a hymnal, singing, and putting change in boxes all at one time. And I know you can do this because we are a multi-talented and gifted community. Please rise in body or in spirit and join together in the singing of our opening hymn, When Spirit Says Do, found in your teal hymnals. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you've got to do, oh Lord. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. 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 Spirit says do, Spirit says do. Now you got to sing when the Spirit says sing. You've got to sing when the Spirit says sing. Now we gotta dance. It's when the Spirit says dance. You've got to dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you've got to dance, oh Lord. You've got to dance when the Spirit says dance. 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 Oh, you gotta laugh. Laugh when the Spirit says laugh. You've got to laugh when the Spirit says laugh. When the Spirit says laugh, you've got to laugh, oh Lord. You've got to laugh when the Spirit says laugh. 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 Now you gotta shout. Shout. I cannot hear you. You've got to shout when the Spirit says shout. When the Spirit says shout, you've got to shout. You've got to shout. Spirit says shout. Spirit says, I can't hear you. What? Really? I cannot believe it. Now you got to do again when the Spirit says do. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you've got to do. You've got to do when the Spirit says do. 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 Robin, do you want to say something quick about this morning? I think we've had our opening hymn, our Halloween parade, and our RE moment all in one fell swoop. Our reading this morning are the words of my friend and colleague Heather Daniels, who is the minister of our congregation in Winchester, Massachusetts, titled The Sacred Thread, This Sacred Thread. She writes, a close-up of framed photographs. In the foreground, a blurry color photo of two people. In the background, vintage-looking black and white photos of couples. They once dwelled among us, the people of memory, they who knew us, they who taught us, they who hurt us, they who loved us. They touch our lives time and again, through their presence and their absence, through familiar scents and favorite songs, through old stories and renewed sorrow. As the earth turns and leaves fall, we reach back to renew the bonds between us. With hearts and hands open, we hold on to love, ever stronger than death. We reach back in gratitude and understanding. Without our time together, the pain and the joy, we would never be who we are today. We would have little to pass on ourselves. without fear, without thanksgiving, and with hope for all that awaits, we remember those who have gone before. We honor the circle of life and death and our place within this sacred thread. Would have us pause for a moment to consider those who have come into our minds and hearts. And if you so desire to name them aloud, please feel free to do so. On this day, the day of my birth, it is my parents, Robert and Marcia Payson, my grandparents, Wilbur and Dorla Rogers, and Ethel and Edwin Payson, my great-grandparents and their parents, and all of those who I have been blessed to relate to over the generations. Laura Maruzzi, Mary Monica Miner, Sandra Mays, and Gladys Gustafson, and Greg Gustafson, Bobby Maudsley, Edna Tillander, yes, Shirley and Walter Irvine, let us relax this day and give ourselves permission to welcome these spirits. Allow them to surround us and embrace us. Let their presence enliven this community once again. On this day when we honor the thinning of the veil between this world and what comes after, let us be mindful that we are not and never shall be alone. We come to that time in our service when we're given pause to consider what is deepest in our hearts or most profoundly on our minds in the form of our gifts that we receive today in the form of spirits, but also to remember our capacity to be that which gifts for the survival of this community and for generations to come. The opportunity to continue to build on what we thrive, with gratitude for those who gave so much of themselves in order that we might be in this place and worship in the way of our own choosing. Let our offering this day be one of gratitude. Let that which we share be symbolic not only of our own efforts, but the prayer that those efforts will continue for generations so that at some point in the future, the distant future, our names become part of that litany, become part of that corporate memory, become part of that energy which continues to enliven and strengthen and heal. This morning, our morning offering will be received. For those of you who are joining us online, you're welcome to participate in this morning's offering by texting 508-231-5335 or by visiting our website, www.uucworcester.org/donate. At this time, the morning offering will be received. We come to that time in our service when we're also given pause to consider what is deepest in our hearts or most profoundly on our minds, or in the work of our hands in the days that have transpired, or the prospect of days to come, joys and sorrows that touch us deeply and are given another measure of meaning because we can share them with those that claim us as a co-journeyer. So I invite those of you who have joys or sorrows this day to come forward and speak into the microphone, telling us who you are so that those who are with us online or using our auditory enhancement devices might also participate in this important ritual, and then to light a candle if you so desire. Are there joys or sorrows to be shared this day?
So I'm Dave Showalter, and we've had a lot of concern over the last week and a half as my father-in-law, Beckley's father, has had COVID. He's not sure how he got it. He is vaccinated. But he's been really sick, and he hasn't had to go to the hospital. He lives in an independent living facility with my mother-in-law, who's in the nursing wing, and but he's had trouble getting enough food down and getting enough water down. The good news is today he said that he feels like he's rounding a corner and feeling better. But my mother-in-law has really gone downhill since all this because of the isolation. So we appreciate your thoughts and prayers. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Catherine Roberts, and I'm a longtime member of this church, although I haven't been around much for the last decade. And I have a joy to share about my son, Jacob, who is now 23 years old. Yeah, I know, shocking, right? He had a hell of an adolescence. It was really a troubling, tough journey for him. And this church did a lot to help stabilize him. The OWL class helped him get through adolescence without getting anybody pregnant. Hurrah! And yeah, he really had a tough time. And this community did a lot to help me get grounded, kind of get back on track every Sunday, and did so much. And yesterday, he dressed up in a really funny costume and went to a party with a bunch of his old friends from elementary and middle school that he hadn't seen in forever. And he let me take a video to share with my sisters. And he said, "Mom, I feel like a kid again." And I said, "Jacob," I said, "isn't it wonderful when you kind of get through that teen angst thing and you're able to just sort of celebrate being normal and being yourself and being happy with family and friends?" And he said, "Yeah." We had a big hug. And it was just astonishing for me. So thank you, everybody.
Good morning, I'm Chuck Ennis. Halloween has a variety of meetings for me. Trick or treat, costumes, parties, birthdays, and preparation for the holiday season. For me, it is the 55th anniversary of my father's fatal heart attack. He was 61, I was 23. Which kind of left me on my own since my mother was living and working in Switzerland. There weren't too many relatives around. But he left a legacy. Unfortunately, he did not get to see his grandchildren or his great-grandchildren, 3 of whom just became teenagers. Hopefully not challenging. But he did leave the legacy of honor, love, trust, community spirit, resilience, and perseverance. I was amazed at the small graveside service to see hundreds of people surround me. So he didn't get to see a lot, but he did see me graduate from UMass. That fall, he had a stroke. The following fall, he had the heart attack. So I celebrate his life today. Born on the Ides of March, passing on All Saints All Hallows Eve, and left behind quite a legacy. So what I hope, and this is wishful thinking, is that somewhere on the other side of the veil, with all the other spirits, he is watching and he is seeing those grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and he is pleased. And so am I. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul, and the one thing I forgot to mention, like when people had passed, was my brother also died, and Stanley, and and my uncle John. He was kind of like my second father. I mean, he was the one that cared, you know, and looked out for me. And my sister-in-law Nancy. Those are, the passing. The other thing too is a joy that I have. During the isolationism that we've had in the past pandemic, I found, like, I was alone a lot. But the one thing I found I wasn't alone a lot was members of this church. And it's good to feel part of a community. A while back, it was July, I was in the hospital because of vertigo, and I found out that one of my neighbors passed away. And I said, what do you say? Do you send a sympathy card like 3 months later? I said, no, I decided not to. But I did look on the internet, and they have these videos that show, and the one thing, even though I didn't really know him that well, is how much he was connected, and he had members of the family, and the family that loved him. And then I think of myself always being alone. I guess in a way, I think like there's some members of here, my family, that love me, and that I'm grateful for. One last thing, I'm going to be having Thanksgiving at my house. So those of you, I can go like to probably 8 people, and if you're so inclined, give me a call.
Hi, my name is Andrea. My son is 13 months old. You may have seen him. He was in the devil costume. One thing I realized when he was born is that he was never going to meet any of his grandparents on my side. And every year, my parents, it's a tradition, is we have an altar with photos of people who have passed. And we remember them. We have space for them at home on Halloween. And I wrote them a letter last year, and I believe that they know who Victor is. I believe that they met him already, and I believe that they're watching him. And this year, Victor got to meet his grandparents on my husband's side. He knows who they are. He has pictures with them, and he got to meet his great-grandfather. So for that, I'm thankful.
Hi, I'm Bruce Lachey, and my joy today is, first of all, that the rain has stopped. And that's good for all the trick-or-treaters. It's also good because today is our last self-help Sunday, and after church, I'll be leading a hike in the woods. It's an easy hike over in Mount Pisgah Conservation Area in Northborough. So if you're interested, you can meet at about 11:45 in front of the church, and we'll get organized.
Good morning, I'm Beth Posner Waldron, and yesterday I had the joy of, yes, being in the rain with Evan Wilson, we went through some neighborhoods around Gates Lane and Mill Street and knocked on doors and got to talk to people face to face about the importance of voting and hand out flyers and leave flyers. And Evan asked me to make an announcement that I've got flyers with me, plus Mass Voter Table gave us some flyers on the candidates running for school committee because they're going to be hiring a superintendent this year, so it's really important that people get out and vote. And it does matter to me who you vote for. I think I misspoke last week. Somebody heard me say it doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I do care. There's a lot that happens in Worcester that affects me because I worship here. I do volunteer work here. I care about all the people who live in Worcester that I interact with. So I've got flyers that I'll leave here. And I also share a concern of my stepson, Philip, who continues to struggle with mental illness, and it's really been hard these last few weeks. Fortunately, he is, again, staying in touch with his dad, my husband, so that's a really good thing. Grateful for that, so that we know where he is. And so just, this is a hard time for people with mental illness, and I think all of us, even if we don't normally have mental health issues, a lot of stress, anxiety that continues to happen in the midst of this COVID pandemic that continues. So thank you.
My name is Jessie, and my joy this week is that it's over because it is a long, long week in the lead up to Halloween. It's my daughter Flora's 8th birthday. It was on Friday. So there's a lot of joy in our house all week, and the Halloween day marks the end of the craziness. So if you see a Hermione Granger running around, wish her happy.
Hi, my name is Laura. Andrea actually got me thinking about ancestors and backgrounds. I've been out of work for a couple days with some back injuries, but there was no way in hell I was going to miss a death metal concert that I was going to. So I had Kane patched up. I got there early so a lady could lean on a wall, and I wound up finding some of Mason's other side of the family. Now I don't know any of them, so I joked around saying it'd be nice to actually have some more metalhead DNA in that cute body of his. But it is nice to actually be able to hopefully let Mason know who his family is. Unfortunately, then I got home to find out another veterinary technician had taken her life. She was a young girl in Connecticut. So it's just a mental illness about remembering the people that are struggling the most, and that's it.
Thank you. Let's be in the spirit of, in the back. You need a mic. Hold on. From the online contingent of our community.
These messages are from Zoom. Bernadette and Brian Nelson wish to thank Matt for his lovely playing and express their joy in seeing the creative spirit of the Halloween costumes. Liz Remian asks if we could light a candle for Kelly Momberger. She is a dear friend of hers and passed on Thursday. She is missing her light, and even knowing there is a candle helps. And from Mara Pentlard, she is grateful that she has access to an electric wheelchair so that even though she is still healing from a broken leg, she can go for walks on the rail trail with her friends.
Let us be in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, we come today with thanksgiving for the lives that have gone before us and for the lives that continue to join with us in the journey. For those we have lost this year, and for those who we continue to cherish in memory. For our children, for the thought of our children's children, for remembering our families in times when we were most in need of them, and with gratitude for the legacy that they have left, for the community that surrounds us, for the ancestors that are part of us, for the work of the world that is ours to do, for the joy and the grief, the thanksgiving and the memory. As the turning seasons remind us, we too are part of a great cycle of life. Let us be mindful of the gift of that life and all the life that has led to this one. Let us not take our responsibilities lightly, but let us be lighthearted in our memory and joyful for the opportunity to be. Amen. And blessed be. I want you to relax and close your eyes for a moment, and I want you to return, if you will, to a common ancestral experience. Leaves are falling. The wind is crisp. The cattle have been moved from the highland fields to the ones closest to the valley. The corn in stacks and corn stalks in piles. The scythe, dull from the blades turn against the hay and the wheat. Hands scarred from this year's harvest and hardened by work that has turned the body a moment's rest and thanksgiving. The summer has been good, but we face the unknown. The winter chill reminds us that time changes and we are part of that time. We have done what we can, and we must turn in. But before that, we turn to each other. The neighbors lit a bonfire that you could see for miles through the night sky. And there was singing and dancing and animal costumes. There was the echo of ancient story, reminding us of the deep connection we have not only to the harvest, but to each other and the world, which seems so unfamiliar and yet so close. We have gathered again in the midst of the turning season. It is Samhain, literally summer's end. And we have arrived once again at the turning of the wheel and the season. As you awaken from that memory, my thoughts this morning turn to that very ancient custom that we are all in some ways a product of. And asking the question how we went from a celebration of the end of summer and the harvest to Halloween, which is really an ancient way of saying All Saints' Day or All Hallows' Eve. You know, this experience that I thought was actually created for me took me years to discover that it wasn't just my celebration, it was everyone's celebration. I had a hard time as a small child getting used to the fact that other children got candy on my birthday. It's one of those things that comes with the hard lessons in life. But I do have these extraordinary memories of going out first with my parents and then with my friends on that eve to travel our neighborhood. I never thought about the fact that other people traveled to our neighborhood too. We had broad sidewalks and there were straight sidewalks upstairs and straight to the doorway. Parents could stand far enough away to see their children go to the neighbors, and the neighbors were known. It was a sense of access and safety. I think about that because I became aware this week as I listened to NPR of urban planners talking about the Halloween test for neighborhoods. Anyone ever heard of this in urban planning? The Halloween test has to do with the experience of individuals as they go through neighborhoods, whether or not there is adequate sidewalk, whether or not you can see the doorway from the sidewalk, whether you can go straight away to the doorway. And there is a particular kind of scoring that happens in urban development based on that. And it's not so much about the pleasantness of the experience as it is about access. It is about the capacity for people to feel like they are connected to each other. And it makes me think about those times as a youth where all of my friends who lived downtown came out to my neighborhood to go trick-or-treating. And at that time, I didn't have a sense of what their experience downtown was like. Many of them lived in condos, in buildings that were straight brick with a couple of windows in the front and maybe one door to access. And I wondered why they didn't trick-or-treat there. And then I learned about the Halloween test and about how it was difficult under those circumstances. And it was far more easy for families to come out to our area of the world. And in my mind, Halloween test has also to do with the experience of the holiday in general. I wondered why many of my friends came out to the neighborhood just beyond me to go shopping, to buy fresh fruit and vegetables, only to discover that the stores that were within walking distance for most of them only carried snacks. I think that's part of the Halloween test too. If we discover that Halloween is fundamentally about the celebration of harvest, of access to the earth's bounty, then part of what it means to honor and explore Halloween is to have access to that bounty. Researchers talking about Halloween talk about this play between the natural world and the urban environment where people go out to the countryside to get those things which are symbolic of Halloween and bring them back into the urban center. For me, it was pumpkins. We always went in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where I grew up, out into the countryside to go pick a pumpkin. Like some of us go out to pick a Christmas tree. It's about the bringing of those particular symbols back into our lives in environments where they're not readily available, to remind us of connections that often go veiled. But Halloween for me has become this exercise and this reminder and consciousness of the privilege that I have because of where I live. That I have the capacity to actually travel to the countryside to pick the fruits that remind me of the season, that I have the capacity to have access to those places that feel safe. I used to feel like my neighborhood was invaded because I never thought about the experience of others. I always thought they just came because we had the better candy. Truth was, we had candy. Part of the experience of this day is reminding ourselves that the difference between life and death, and I don't just mean physical life and death, I mean spiritual life and death, I mean psychological life and death, I mean emotional life and death, is just how very connected we feel to each other and to our environment. This ancient holiday that had to do with the end of the harvest, that got turned by the church into a celebration of the saints, never lost its potency. Yes, the church did a lot to try to change our perspective on what was happening. You know, the old fairy culture of the Gaelic culture, the the old Irish legends became legends about witches instead of fairies. Those legends became an opportunity for us to begin to shift the focus away from the ancient practice of honoring the forces of the harvest to creating a sense that those forces were demonic, and it was only the church that was to be celebrated in the process. What the church did not recognize, nor did it plan for, was the fact that what they were trying to alter was deeper than simply practice. It was part of the human psyche to experience this turn of the season as a reflection of the turning that happens within us. I'm mindful here of Jack Santino's work on Halloween in America. He says, paying tribute to a race of gods at Samhain in the saga literature parallels the folk custom of setting out food and gifts to appease wandering spirits, which in turn parallels the folk practice of giving presents and food and drink to maskers who imitate those spirits. This is called mumming, from the ancient work mame, meaning the parade of masks. The road from the saga literature of the early centuries of recorded history to children in masks trick-or-treating door to door is a long one, with many intersections and forks and side roads and curves, but we can already see that in the earliest materials associated with the ancient ancestors of Halloween, the beginnings of the traditions are still practiced today. He continues, the organic objects of the harvest, the corn stalk, the corn cob, the pumpkin, the squash, or the turnip, which for those of you who were not on the IHN trivia game earlier this month, and Sue, since you created it, you can't answer it. What was the first jack-o'-lantern? Who said turnip? Yes, right? The hardest object on the planet is the one that gets turned into this experience of transforming a natural object into something that relates to human experience of the changing of the seasons. Jack, by the way, in Jack-o'-lantern was a blacksmith, right? Who was kicked out of heaven, and because he had tricked the devil, was not allowed in hell, right? Kind of like being a Unitarian never mind. So this experience of lighting the jack-o'-lantern, of putting coals in a pumpkin that's been carved out, is really about the experience of being caught between two realms. And I love the symbolism of the jack-o'-lantern, because for me, this notion of being caught between two realms is having to adjust to the reality that we are in the present. What do we do? Caught between heaven and hell, caught between the possibility of community, of life everlasting, and the possibility of suffering. In the midst of that, what do? We provide light. We turn something scary actually into something which bemuses, but also reminds us of our capacity as human beings to face that sense of being in between. Is there anyone here this year who has not felt as though they have been in between heaven and hell, life and death? The realities that we have faced as a community make our lives ever more precious because we feel as though we're in this in-between time, stuck in our houses. So what did we do? We caused an economic upheaval because we decided not to go on vacation. We decided to redo the bathroom. I'm just speaking for myself. We decided to make our lives something more than they were. And it wasn't just by redoing our internal household thing. Some of us risked our lives by going out into the community and actually confronting the realities of dis-ease with the tools of our trade, providing vaccinations, making certain people had food, transporting people to where they needed to go, providing the technology necessary for people to be able to connect to each other. This experience of the jack-o'-lantern, of that personality that was in between, that was demonized by the church as a way of trying to usurp the power of folk history, turns into the most significant symbol for what it means to survive an era of pandemic. When you are neither in heaven or in hell and you are stuck in the realm between, become a light. Shine into the darkness. Claim your capacity to not worry about heaven or hell. And realize that heaven and hell are more than likely the product of our own creation. I love the fact that on All Saints' Day, the way the church responded to this very potent harvest festival, end of summer festival, was by creating this opportunity to turn to what was important to the church. And so when you go to the liturgy for All Saints' Day today, for this year in the Revised Common Lectionary, what story do you think you hear? The story of Lazarus. The story of the desire for us to overcome the reality of death, the story of the intimate bonds between friends trying to reconcile themselves to the reality of death. And the way that the Gospel of John puts it is instead of addressing the reality of that bond that friends have and consoling each other, it turns into an opportunity to have a theological awakening that that in the personality of Jesus to change this reality. But what it doesn't deal with is that well beyond the story of Jesus is a folk history that remembers that it is in the gathering of community, people coming together when tragic things occur, that we redeem our existence. I love what my friend Forrest Church has to say about this reality. He says, there's life after death as well. He's writing this after his esophageal cancer has come back. I just don't expect that it's a personalized life, says my colleague. We come from the cosmos, we return to the cosmos, but the miracle lies not in living forever. It springs from living in the first place. The odds against our being here in the first place are infinitesimal. You have to go back not just to the right egg and the right sperm of your parents, you have to go back to all the way through through history. None of our grandparents and great-grandparents died before puberty. If you go back to the 11th and 12th century, most of us have some 2.5 million ancestors, all of whom made it and connected at the right time. For those of us with European heritage, none of our ancestors died before puberty and the Great Plague, those whose mighty scythe cut down the continent's children. Then go back beyond to our pre-human ancestors and the Paramecium, and then back farther to the pinball of stars, all the way back to the Big Bang. We were kinetically and genetically connected to everything that preceded us. The universe was pregnant with us when it was born. The odds against this are staggering, and so we miss it entirely when we say, what did I do to deserve this? We didn't do anything to deserve being alive, yet every life sentence is also a death sentence. A woman gives death when she gives birth. With life comes the certitude, the promise of death. We should embrace that necessary bequest with the same kind of reverence that we embrace and celebrate our birth. To me, that is the essence of this holiday that was all about me. As I have grown older, I have come to recognize that it is not just about my birth, but it is about the reality of the life that continues beyond my death. And what has given it such potency is this an ancient call that cannot be diverted by the church, cannot be diverted by dis-ease, that reminds us that none of us go it alone, that our neighborhoods ought to be those places where we experience life in abundance, and that we ought to open ourselves up to others whose experience is less than that. And that Halloween, All Hallows Eve, the summer's end festival, is about being grateful for surviving, thriving, and dying. That is a hard thing to think about in an age when we have seen so much death. And yet it may be the thing that actually helps us survive beyond that reality, when we realize that so much life is continued to be lived through us. And that ought to bring us gratitude. Gratitude for this moment and for this life so well lived. And for me, that's the best birthday present of all. Amen, and blessed be. Would you please join together in the litany that is found on the back of your order of service, the central task of religious community by my friend and colleague, Mark Morrison Reed. The central task of religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength too limited to do all that must be done. Would you please join together in our closing hymn found in your teal hymnals, number 101. Please rise in body or in spirit. More often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. The ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Whoosh, wish. Those who have loved have never left, but then the earth. They are in the rustling trees, they are in the groaning woods, they are crying in the grass, they are My favorite benediction words from my colleague Mark Bellatini. Go in peace. Live simply, gently, at home in yourselves. Act justly. Speak justly. Remember the depth of your own compassion and forget not your power in the days of your powerlessness. Do not desire to be wealthier than your peers and stint not your hand at charity. Practice forbearance. Speak the truth or speak not. Take care of yourselves as bodies. And if you don't remember anything else this morning, remember this. For you are a good gift. Crave peace for all people in the world, beginning with yourselves. And go as you go with the dream of that peace alive in your hearts. Amen and blessed be. As we hear our postlude this morning, I'm going to invite us to process out to the edge of the driveway where you will see a large yellow or a small yellow free library that has been constructed, and gather there for words by our Religious Exploration Director, Robin Mickiewicz.
Yes, you can sit on that for the picture. We can have you sit with there and get a picture. Robin, let's do the post picture first. We'll only take one. Aaron, we're going to do a post picture first. You stand up here. Bart's going to come into the studio. And this time, I'm going to ask that we see the tower. So, Aaron, can you step back a little bit? Can you step over the wall? Oh, that's not bad. Thank you. You're going to come with me whenever I post pictures. Robin, can you be a mirror image of Aaron on the other side? All right, this is lovely. Aaron, you can move in a little. I didn't need to move yet. All right, everyone. Looking at you. One more here. I'm done.
You want one with your mask off?
Yeah, let's take your mask. Oh, no, no problem. Let's do the mask shot now. All right, folks, here we go. We're done. Thank you, everybody.
I'm supposedly going from Zoom, so I'm recording from Zoom.
Well, you just treat
Oh, yeah, I know.
No, there's not. And my son, he would start the nails and they have to do a sharp. The little one would hold one side.
Who is it?
Sam became Gail's son. And so I just want us to
have a moment of silence for Sam, having missed that this morning, but also to surround the McGain family who is just suffered the loss of the storm yesterday.
But we'll keep
Gail's
them back.
former husband.
I'm just, if you find it, because of the issue of.
Let us,
But they're
just offer a moment of silence.
Yeah. Guys, we're doing a moment of silence.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry that I missed Robin.
Okay, so I know it's really noisy out here, but I just wanted to tell you a little bit about this. It was an idea from Rachel Keogh to highlight some of our books. We brought it to Bart. He decided to help us build it. Thank you, Bart. Bart, raise your hand. Coming of age class. Where's our coming of age class? Raise your hands. Painted it. Sorted books for it. All of our books are representation of how we feel with Unitarian Universalists. And also our library inside, which is our Justice and Diversity Library. It won't stay that way because people will put books in and take books out, but we are brand opening it stock. Also, the garden crew has put in native plant seeds for all to take so we can spread the wealth of native plants and some information. Donation that was left to us by John Pierce's family in memory of Rita Pierce, who passed away last year. We would like to dedicate it at this moment to Rita Pierce. Bart. Rita Pierce left some money to the Religious Exploration Program. This is part of our program to spread the wealth of books to the community. And we hope that we can also give everybody the message of what we do here inside of our church. And Bart? And before anybody asks, I will put all calls out for different types of books that we may need, but do not bring books in to put in on your own because we don't want to be barraged with books that we can't use.
Let us repeat that. Do not bring all your books. Wait for Robin to call.
The funny thing is we haven't even opened it yet, and the whole bottom was filled with books that somebody driving by had put in. I mean, it's a good thing, but
And were they moldy?
Cleaning out all her books before she moved. She only moved like a fifth of her books, but she went through two bookcases and she came up with this bag, and I said, "Oh, I'll save them for the yard sale." And then she came home and filled another bag. And I said, "I don't have that much room to save them for the yard sale if you come up with some more." So, what kind do you need?
We shall now dedicate our little free library to Rita Pierce's memory. Bart is putting the plaque up as we speak. We'll take your picture and then you can send it to the kids.
Okay.
Can I get in there?
Take your mask off.
There's the. Your work. All right. Something you filled those
And the sun came out.
What? Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I did that about 10 minutes before the service. And the nice thing about it is about the same size as the listening right. So,
All right.
Okay, wait, Tom. Okay, now.
Okay.
Okay.
and get Tom in it too.
Thank you, Tom. All right, everybody, you can go get some food, and thank you for your time.
Huh.
Oh, yeah. I so love. You're good?
I hope so.
Okay. Excellent.
We were able to do that on Zoom and Facebook.
Hopefully it worked. I don't know. I can cancel this.
Frank was going to shut it down if it wasn't working, but it seems like it was.